Man, if you're a parent like me, you are wondering a lot about college and you have some questions that need answers. And that's why we're here. Welcome to Committed, the College Admissions Playbook. There are tons of questions that are circling around in parents' brains around the country around what it's going to look like to get their kid to college. What might be questions about standardized tests. It might be questions about what's the right school for my student to go to. It might be why in the world does my student want to study this and what they're going to do with this. Can they get a job with this degree? I mean, there are tons of questions. And at Committed, we hope to help give you the answers. My name is Rennie Cook, and I'm excited to be one of your co-hosts here for Committed, the College Admissions Playbook. I want to also introduce you to my other co-host, John Izzo from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. John, how you doing today, man?
Ren, I'm excited to kick this thing off. We've been talking about it for a while, and here we are. Here we are.
Well, we wouldn't be here without Stacy, right? We wouldn't be here without the CEO. Finally made it happen.
She's the boss. I mean, we talked about this in LA, 5 months ago? And, you and me, it was just banter. And, the boss came in and held our feet to the fire. And here we go. First
be careful what we dream around Stacy, because she'll just start making it happen and putting us to work. But we're glad to be here, guys. We're glad to be here to talk to you guys about college admissions. This is something that John and I are very, very passionate about. And we want to share with you through this process some tips and some techniques and some advice with decades of experience in this what we call the college admissions game. And what's a great playbook do? Great playbook helps you navigate these complicated waters, because that's one of the things we've seen change over our time around the college admissions game is how it's become more complicated. John, what have you seen? How have you seen things become more complicated in your time around college admissions?
So I'm going to answer your question with the question. So did you see that video that was going viral a couple months back where, and I wish that I knew the exact title, but there was a husband and a wife, and they put together a video where kind of comparing applying to college in 1990 versus applying to college in 2023.
They're playing the role of college admissions counselors, right? Yeah, or college admissions advisors.
Yeah, it was fantastic. 20 years ago, a kid with a 3.0 that was in NHS, spectacular.
Full ride.
Now a kid, 4.5 GPA, 1500 SAT, he only cured one type of cancer. Questionable.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just, from an evolution standpoint, it's so competitive. It's getting so expensive. Things are just constantly evolving. When you did it 20 years ago, well, maybe 30 years ago.
Easy.
You did it 30 years ago, totally different ballgame. When I did it 20 years ago, totally different. Now, even looking, as recent as pre-COVID, 4 or 5 years ago,
right.
The expectations and just everything is so much different then versus it is now. And, even last year to compared to this year and what's coming up, and, our school is going to remain test optional. What's the differences with the way the essays are being read now with all this AI stuff coming out. So it's a constant change.
Man, and this the stress that it's putting on our already overwhelmed students. I mean, tell you what, I look at the students that we're working with here in Oklahoma and Texas, and I'm blown away by the things they're doing. I mean, I was, when I was a high school, student in small town Veneta, Oklahoma, I was playing basketball. I was involved in, student council, a few things at school. I worked. And like you said, I mean, I was really fortunate to get some great offers from some great schools. But today's student, I mean, I have students that are studying and doing research in lupus. I have, people that are world-class flutists and their academics is outside, just out of the world. I have students who are raising millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars for nonprofits. I mean, it's just so stinking competitive out there, man.
Well, and I think what's going to be so helpful for a lot of our listeners and, parents, educating themselves on what else is out there now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of association and stigma with, a particular school or a type of school when they went back, 20 years ago when they were doing this. And now, a school like University of Florida, where, back in the day, wasn't that difficult to get into.
Yeah.
Now it's number, one or number three public school in the nation and not test optional. If you don't have a 4.5 and a 1400, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
So it's the parents getting on board with educating themselves on, what is realistic for their kids. I think that's gonna help a lot of people.
Tell you what, man, you started saying that, John. I started getting nervous. I got a high school freshman, and yeah, I know your people are listening. When freshman, why are you worried about it, man? It begins that early. It actually can begin as early as eighth and even middle school because these kids, man, they are just. I tell you what, they blow me away. I look at the things my daughter is doing, and I look at the things other students are doing that we work with through our college planning business here in Norman, Oklahoma. Man, they are so far ahead of where we were. I mean, they're taking classes in middle school that affect their high school GPA. They're taking classes in middle school that affect their course progressions and what they'll even be able to take as juniors and seniors. And this not even the academic side, but you've seen it. I mean, what are these kids doing extracurricularly that is just totally different?
The days of, being in Spanish club and key club and you feeling like you were making a difference,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. There's still, millions of kids out there that they're stretched thin, between school and sports and a job. And then, there's some of these exceptional kids out there that, are kind of being splattered on the scene where, they're doing cancer research and they're published authors at 16 years old. And it's mind blowing, and
Yeah.
kudos to them. What
Yeah.
they're able to do, it's amazing. And a lot of people are caught off guard by how competitive things are now.
So
You know,
competitive, man. I have a young lady I was working with. She was doing lupus research, man. Lupus research.
I didn't even know
I
what
mean, so
lupus was until I was 22.
I was playing basketball year round at that age. I wasn't thinking about lupus research, but I mean, it is. It's just amazing what these students are doing, what they're able to accomplish, and how do you parent through that? How do you lead your student through that, balancing their life, not over being overly stressed out, and ultimately navigating the transition to college and finding the best value and the best fit for them. And that's what we're about. That's what Committed is about, right? Committed is about helping your student in a healthy and in a successful manner get to college in a way that adds value to their life and sets them up for success moving forward. Because the reality is this, guys, as I've worked with people of all ages and all stages in life, and it's probably one of the most unfair things we ask 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Hey, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? What do you want to do when you grow up? And I mean, it's a deer in the headlight type question, John. I mean, in so many ways it's unfair. I'm almost 50 years old, and I've done three or four different things with my life, and we expect these teenagers to tell you what they want to do with the rest of their life. I
And
just
what makes this so exhausting at times, Ren, is how much these schools cost. And every year tuition is hiking
yeah,
2%, 4%. In the days of, a lot, it's funny, a lot of these parents will come in and, they're not as educated as they would like to be as far as, what things cost now in the process. And, I hear a lot of dads, back in the day, they say, well, you know what, I just mowed lawns all summer to pay for my
yeah.
semester tuition. Those
Yeah.
days are long gone. So,
I
the
called basketball and baseball like crazy all year long, and it was a blast and it was fun and it paid for my college.
yeah,
That ain't happening anymore.
no, I mean, now, the decision that these kids are making, there is so much of a financial constraint to it because, you're not spending six, seven, $8,000 a year. You're spending 30, 40, 50 grand a year. And we're getting into mortgage type student loans that they have to
Yeah.
take out or mortgage type payments that these parents have to make. So there is much more at stake now, which is, making things even more difficult.
Well, there's no question that the landscape, as we talked about a little bit, is becoming more competitive. And it's competitive on the student side, right? Because our students are just doing amazing things across the board. It's also competitive for the colleges, right? And that's sometimes something we can play to our advantage, right? Because they see these amazing students and they're fighting for them more and more and more and more. But like you said, it's also, man, the expense is just going up. And we can talk a little bit about the reasons around that, but the reality is this is just more of a serious investment. And with any serious investment, you want to get experts around you, and that's what hopefully John and I are able to do. Not because we're the experts, because we'll bring experts to help share with you some insights. John, here's the other thing I've seen. Here's the other thing I've seen is it's just becoming more complicated. It's not as simple as when I was applying to school back in the 90s and got an application and got my typewriter out. The hardest thing about an application when I was in high school is the whiteout, man, because I'd make typos. It's different now.
Putting a stamp on the corner of the envelope, writing out the address. You remember the
Right.
days?
Right. It's just
It's
different.
it's different. Well, and Rennie, don't even feel bad. So you went when you were doing this in the 90s, I was doing this in the 2000s, and even the kids who were doing this 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID, it's a different game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every year something is constantly changing, and everybody's up in arms about the FAFSA changes, and it's inconvenient, and it's something that we're going to have to kind of see through and deal with. But navigating all the different elements of the application, navigating whether a school is going to require a test score or not, like it's something that you have to constantly just keep an eye on it, because it changes monthly almost.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, we've
What
been watching the news right now, right? You see posts all the time about how schools are changing their test optional policies. It's coming out right now. Yale's changing their test optional policy. Dartmouth has changed their test optional policy. I mean, these
well,
just you have to stay on top of it.
Did you see the latest with all the AI stuff, and
Yeah,
how schools are starting to adjust how they're going to review college essays, because Chat GBT and all these AIs, where what, these essays are coming out spectacular and perfectly grammatically written, and these schools know that, they know something's
yeah,
up. So Duke and a couple other places have already said, you know what, we're going to change our rating scale, and we're not so much worried about you know is this grammatically correct? We want to know the story. You
yeah,
might punch in whatever you want through GBT, but you need the
yeah.
story.
You got to be able to write a story, man. That's right. Make it personal, make it vulnerable. I mean, and so these are just examples of the ever-changing environment. And it goes back to the most popular answer to any question people ever ask us about college. It just depends. It just
Depends on the
depends. And so
school.
that's why we're here, right? We understand that college is becoming more costly, and it's probably one of the biggest decisions and biggest investments, especially early on in a person's life that they're making. Things are changing every day, not every year, every day. Things are changing in this landscape, the college admissions game, and we want to help you understand those changes and be aware of them as they come across. It's more complicated, right, man? I tell you, when I was going through college, there was no things, early action, early decision, restricted early action. I mean, all this. I mean, this, CSS profiles. What's that? I thought we just had to do a FAFSA, and it's just becoming more competitive, and it's becoming more challenging. And as far as complications go, it's becoming more costly, and it's always changing. So that's what we hope to help you here at Committed. So you're probably wondering who these guys are that can help you through that. Well, my friend John Izzo is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he has a great background in this. John, introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners.
My name is John Izzo. I own a college planning business in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I come from a unique scenario, because 20 years ago, I was a kid who desperately would have benefited from somebody getting the guidance that people like us provide.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a backstory. I had two loving parents. They were great, supported me in every way possible, but they were blue collar people. They didn't go to college. So, college was always the expectation, but navigating it, they had no clue.
Yeah.
I was also a student athlete. So, I was a baseball guy long time ago. And my whole approach to college, looking back now, was incredibly immature, unrealistic. But I was a D1 or bust baseball kid. I was chasing a scholarship. And when all of that fell through, I had very few options. I didn't have my plan B and my plan C lined up. And I know a lot of other, athletes now, 20 years later, they're in that same position. And it's because we didn't invest the time, and we weren't realistic enough to say, you know what, at some point, this train is going to stop.
Yeah.
So you need to have
You
your
can't
back.
play forever.
Cannot play forever. So, ended up going to a college I was very unfamiliar with. At the time, I knew nothing about how small it was, what the price tag was, what majors they offered. It was an opportunity for me to go play baseball. And fortunately for me, it worked out. I met my wife. We have two great kids. I met some of my best friends, groomsmen in my wedding. And I felt like I was always playing catch up. My late teens, my early 20s, still really not knowing what the plan was. I'm in college, I have this major, and you know, I was kind of put in a position where I graduate, I have this degree. the job market was very, very limited.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember, I could take my first job in social work and make 12 bucks an hour, or I could go make more money roofing with my father. So that was kind of, the deciding factor that drove
Yeah.
me into, okay, you know what? You're going to go do this the right way. Went to graduate school, pursued a degree in professional counseling. And I'll never forget, this was like such a defining moment. My second semester in my graduate program, they showed us, here's all of these concentrations that you can explore: addiction counseling, family and marriage counseling, student affairs counseling. And lo and behold, school counseling popped up. And that's when it seemed like everything just kind of clicked. I'm
Yeah.
thinking back, 6 years prior, if I would have had somebody in my corner explaining to me, you know what,
Yeah.
ride this baseball thing out, have fun with it, go as far as you can, but don't make it be the end all be all. Have your options lined up. Make sure that if you're going to go for baseball and you're going to go for this school, everything else aligns also. And so that's what I did. I was a counselor for a while, and it was great. I loved my time in the public schools, and I realized pretty quickly, probably like a lot of other counselors, what you think the job is and what the job actually is, two vastly different things. And you go in with the mindset of, you know what, I can grab these kids and I can snatch them out of study hall, and we can explore what's life look like after high school, and are we applying to college, and supporting them through essay writing and all these things that kind of gets them to that point. But then you realize you also have the kids that are struggling emotionally. You have the kids that need their schedules built.
Yeah.
You have to schedule the entire AP system within your district. So there's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
So that was when, 6.5 years ago, I took it upon myself to say, you know what, I'm going to take this passion for helping kids, and I'm going to start my own business where I get all of the perks of being a guidance counselor without the limitations of being in a school district.
Good. I mean, I tell you what, we both now, and you lived it, and I work with them daily as a college planner as well. Man, school counseling is just amazing, amazing calling. And we hear people criticize school counselors and high school counselors all the time, but people just need to realize these folks are totally, totally overwhelmed, right? They
On
typically
their
the
plate
nationals.
is
I mean,
great.
you can get upset, mom and dad, if your son or daughter is not getting the extra scholarship help they need. Just realize that that high school counselor might be deciding between helping your kid with another scholarship application, or helping a kid down the hall get a meal. Your kid might not be getting a little bit of extra help with that application they need for admission, because they're helping some other student down the hall that's facing amazing trauma. So really, really pro counselors, and just appreciate the hard work they're doing every day. They're really the social service professionals right there on the front lines with our teenagers every day. John, I come from a little bit of a different background, right? Or similar background, but a little different angle. Small town kid from northeastern Oklahoma, and came, and I'm a first generation college student. I didn't know up from down, and it came to a place that was to me pretty big at the University of Oklahoma. And you just, it was on the struggle bus. It was a hard transition to me. I made a lot of assumptions about college because no one was there to guide me. No one was there to coach me through it. My mom was as supportive as she could be, but once again, first generation college student. My dad passed away when I was 14 years old, and it was just tough, and made a lot of decisions out of ignorance that I had to pay for later on. I had to pay for later on. Luckily enough to get through college, got a degree in social studies education. I wanted to be a basketball coach and a principal, and ultimately started working at the University of Oklahoma in the recruitment / admissions office. And so I used to go visit people like John, knock on the doors and say, "Hey, let me come talk about the University of Oklahoma," and really love that. Love helping students and families make that transition, navigate the process specifically to attend the University of Oklahoma. Then I went to the Health Sciences Center in Oklahoma City, worked with professional students like medical students and dental students and physical therapy and nursing students, make that same kind of transition to the professional degree programs that were there. Went back to Norman and served as the dean of students. And people always ask me, "What's a dean? What does a dean of students do?" Here's what you need to think of. Think about the principal. I was the principal, If it wasn't misconduct in the classroom, I was responsible for it. And so you spend about 8 years doing that, and we're dealing with fraternity guys, and you'll end up with a bald head like myself. And that's no criticism to fraternity guys. Well, it is kind of, but I'm one too, so it's okay.
Hey, you are. It's
I
okay.
Yeah, I was one too, so I get it. Spent some, I mean, and spent some time as the head of the OU Alumni Association, traveling around, raising money, do that kind of fun stuff. And but all of that time that I was at OU, almost 12 years, I saw, because of the committees that I was on and the admissions, the alternative admissions committee, the scholarship committees, it just the things we talked about is becoming more costly, becoming more complicated, becoming more competitive, and it was just really, really a lot of chaos for families that they didn't understand. And likewise, about 6.5 years ago, about the same time, we dove in. My wife Stacy and I dove in and started a college planning company here in Norman, Oklahoma, to help people through that process. And so that's what we hope to help you guys that are listening to this podcast, is just to bring a little bit of our background. We come out from different angles, but with the same goal in mind, to help your student and to help your family navigate these complexities. So what can you expect from Committed? What can you expect from Committed? Well, we want you to really not just hear from us. Our goal is to bring some of the probably what we would consider industry experts on our show and share with you some insights. And John, who are some of the different people and experts we've thought about?
We have a lot of ideas,
Yeah,
people coming in from different careers, trying to shed light on the job market. What are hot majors right now that kids are going for? What are some of the salaries coming out? From an athletic standpoint, kids who are playing athletics at the collegiate level, sharing some insight on, the proper way to try to get yourself recruited. And what I think is also going to be really cool is, we all have a current batch of seniors now, and really getting their insight and bringing some on and, sharing, what are some tips? What's a way to keep
yeah,
your mind right during this process? So sharing some information for the upcoming seniors for what to expect.
yeah. I think that's
Maybe,
critical, right? Critical.
maybe
Sometimes we hear better from our peers than we do from bald-headed old guys like myself, and so that's always helpful. And parents, I'm telling you, it's also the other thing is sometimes it's hard for them to hear it from you. I have a freshman in high school, and I am not her college planner. I'm not her college planner. Someone else is her college planner, who she thinks is just the most brilliant, most intelligent person in the world. And I've yet to tell Ainsley that I'm the one that trained her. So it's working really well right now. We also want to bring college representatives on. We want to bring people who are experts around essay development, experts around standardized tests. We want to bring experts around scholarship searches and financial aid processes. And we want to bring those kind of resources to you that help you become more informed, because when you're informed, you're empowered, and hopefully that'll help you through this process. All right, guys. So what do we do now? Well, we want you to stay connected with us. And of course, we want to stay connected with you guys. So wherever you are listening to this podcast, subscribe so you're going to be automatically notified when one of our new episodes come out. You can also make comments right here, right below this video, and we will do our best to respond to them. And you can also send us your questions and your comments. We want to reply to those. We want to be a resource to you. We might even take your question into one of our next episodes. So email us. And then, of course, how can you not in today's world? We want you to follow us. Follow us on Insta, follow us on Facebook, and stay up to date on what's happening with Committed, your college admissions playbook. We'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks for checking us out.